Unexpected kindness, the morning rain painted streaks across the windows of Sunrise Café, creating a cozy atmosphere that Elena Martinez had grown to love over the past 3 years. She moved gracefully between tables, her worn apron tied snugly around her waist, carrying steaming mugs of coffee to early commuters seeking refuge from the Portland drizzle. The small café, tucked between a used bookstore and a vintage clothing shop, had become her sanctuary, a place where she could be herself without the weight of expectations or the burden of her hidden identity. Elena had inherited Martinez Technologies when she turned 25, but the corporate world felt suffocating. The boardroom meetings, the calculated conversations, the people who smiled too widely when they learned her last name, it all felt hollow. So she had quietly stepped back, letting trusted managers handle the day-to-day operations while she pursued something that felt real. The cafe was her escape, purchased under a different name, where she could serve honest coffee to honest people without anyone knowing she was worth more than most small countries. The bell above the door chimed, and Elena looked up to see familiar figures shuffling in from the rain. David Chen had been coming to her cafe for about 6 months now, always ordering the same thing, a large black coffee and whatever pastry was cheapest. His clothes were clean but worn, his backpack patched in several places, and his shoes had seen better days. But what drew Elena to him wasn't his obvious financial struggles, it was the way he always said please and thank you, the way he stacked his dishes neatly when he finished, and the gentle way he spoke to everyone around him. The usual? Elena asked with a warm smile as David approached the counter, shaking raindrops from his dark hair. Actually, David hesitated, glancing at the menu board. Just the coffee today. I'm trying to cut back on expenses. Elena nodded without judgment. But her heart went out to him. She had noticed he'd been skipping the pastry more often lately. One large black coffee, coming right up, and you know what? I made too many blueberry muffins this morning. Do you mind helping me out by taking one off my hands? David's eyes lit up with gratitude, though he tried to hide it. Are you sure? I don't want to take advantage of your kindness. Trust me. You'd be doing me a favor. I hate throwing food away. Elena handed him the coffee and wrapped a still-warm muffin in a paper napkin. Besides, I've been experimenting with the recipe. I could use an honest opinion, as David found his usual table. By the window, Elena couldn't help but watch him from the corner of her eye. He pulled out a worn sketchbook and began drawing, occasionally glancing up at the rain-soaked street outside. She had always been curious about what he drew, but never wanted to intrude. During quieter moments, she would catch glimpses of detailed sketches, buildings, people, scenes from around the neighborhood, all rendered with obvious skill and passion. "Excuse me," a well-dressed woman at table 4 called out impatiently. "This latte is completely wrong. I asked for oat milk, not regular milk." Elena hurried over, ready to apologize and make a new drink, but the woman continued her complaint loudly. "This is exactly why I don't usually come to places like this. The service is amateur at best." Before Elena could respond, David had quietly appeared beside the table. "I'm sorry, but I couldn't help overhearing. Elena makes the best coffee in the city, and she's been nothing but kind to everyone who walks through that door. Maybe we could all use a little more patience on a rainy morning like this." The woman huffed and gathered her things, leaving without another word. Elena felt a flush of warmth spread through her chest, not from embarrassment, but from gratitude. No one had ever stood up for her like that, especially not someone who barely knew her. "You didn't have to do that," Elena said softly, as David returned to his seat. "Yes, I did. People like you make the world better. Someone should acknowledge that." David's sincerity was unmistakable, and Elena felt something shift inside her chest. As the morning rush subsided, Elena found herself gravitating toward David's table. "What are you working on?" she asked, gesturing toward his sketchbook. David hesitated for a moment, then turned the page toward her. The drawing showed the view from his window, the café's interior with Elena behind the counter, captured in intricate detail. But it wasn't just technically impressive. It somehow conveyed the warmth and life of the space. The way morning light filtered through the rain-streaked windows, the comfortable chaos of a place where people felt welcome. "This is incredible," Elena breathed, genuinely amazed. "An artist I'm trying to be," David said with a self-deprecating smile. Right now I'm more of a part-time delivery driver who draws in coffee shops. What kind of art do you want to create? David's eyes brightened as he flipped through more pages, showing her architectural sketches and urban landscapes. I want to design spaces that bring people together, community centers, public parks, affordable housing that's actually beautiful. I know it sounds naive, but I believe good design can change lives. Elena studied his work with growing admiration. Each drawing showed not just technical skill, but a deep understanding of how people lived and moved through spaces. This doesn't sound naive at all. It sounds necessary. They talked for another hour, long past the time David usually left. Elena learned that he worked 3 different jobs to pay for a tiny studio apartment and art supplies, that he had grown up in foster care and put himself through community college, that he sent half his earnings to help support his foster siblings, who were still in the system. With each story, Elena felt more drawn to his resilience and kindness. When David finally had to leave for his afternoon shift delivering packages, Elena impulsively called out, "David, wait. Would you like to grab dinner sometime? I know a great little place that serves amazing Vietnamese food." David's face lit up with surprise and pleasure. "I'd love that. But I should probably mention that I'm not exactly in a position to split expensive restaurant bills right now." "My treat," Elena said quickly. "Consider it payment for the art consultation. I've been thinking about redecorating the cafe, and I could use someone with your eye for design." That evening, as Elena closed up the cafe, she realized she hadn't thought about board meetings or stock prices or her trust fund all day. For the first time in years, she felt genuinely excited about getting to know someone. David's honesty and kindness had awakened something in her that she had thought was lost forever. Ability to connect with another person without pretense or hidden agendas. She looked around the cafe, seeing it through new eyes. This simple space had become more than just her escape, was becoming the foundation of something real. As she turned off the lights and locked the door, Elena smiled to herself. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. The rain had stopped, and the evening air felt fresh with possibility. Elena walked home through the quiet streets, her mind already planning the perfect dinner that would let her learn more about the extraordinary man who had stumbled into her carefully constructed ordinary life. Walls come down. Lena arrived at the cafe early the next morning, her stomach fluttering with nervous excitement. She had barely slept, her mind racing with thoughts of her upcoming dinner with David. As she prepared the morning pastries, she found herself humming something she hadn't done in months. The simple prospect of genuine companionship felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. David appeared at his usual time, but today he lingered at the counter instead of immediately finding his table. About dinner tonight, he began running, a hand through his hair. "I hope you don't think I'm taking advantage of your generosity. I just haven't had a real conversation with someone in so long." Elena's heart squeezed at his honesty. "David, I asked you because I wanted to. When was the last time you did something just for fun?" He considered this seriously. Probably not since college. Everything feels like it has to serve a purpose. Earn money, build skills, help someone else. I forgot that some things can just be enjoyable. "Then we're both overdue," Elena said, handing him his coffee with an extra warm smile. Throughout the day, Elena found herself watching the clock, counting hours until evening. When David left for his delivery shift, she impulsively decided to close the cafe an hour early. She wanted to go home and change, to shed her coffee-stained apron, and worn jeans for something that felt more like herself. Her apartment was a study in contradictions. Expensive furnishings mixed with thrift store finds original artwork hanging beside David's sketches that she had secretly photographed with her phone and printed. She had been living this double life for so long that sometimes she forgot which version of herself was real. Elena chose a simple dress that looked nice, but not expensive. Adding a vintage necklace that could have come from any secondhand shop, she caught herself in the mirror and paused. When had she become so practiced at hiding who she was? The Vietnamese restaurant, Pho Saigon, was tucked into a strip mall 20 minutes from downtown. Elena had discovered it during one of her late-night drives when the weight of her secret life felt too heavy to bear. The owner, Mrs. Nguyen, treated every customer like family. and the food was extraordinary. David was waiting outside when Elena arrived, and she was struck by how different he looked. He wore dark jeans and a button-down shirt that brought out the warmth in his brown eyes. His hair was still slightly damp from a shower, and he carried a small wrapped package. "You look beautiful," he said simply, and Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks. "So do you," she replied, then laughed at herself. "I mean, you look handsome, obviously." David grinned at her flustered response. "I brought you something." He handed her the package. "It's not much, but I wanted to thank you for your kindness." Elena unwrapped it carefully to find a small pencil sketch of the café's interior, but drawn from a customer's perspective. She was behind the counter, caught in a moment of concentration as she prepared coffee, sunlight streaming through the windows around her. The drawing somehow captured not just her physical appearance, but something deeper, a sense of peace and purpose that Elena hadn't known she projected. "David, this is beautiful. But you shouldn't have. I wanted to," he interrupted gently. "It's how I see you, someone who brings warmth to the world." Mrs. Nguyen seated them at a corner table, immediately bringing hot tea and asking about their day as if they were old friends. Elena watched David interact with the older woman, noting how he listened intently to her stories about her grandchildren and asked thoughtful questions about her recipes. "You're very good with people, Elena," observed after Mrs. Nguyen left to check on their order. "I learned early that everyone has a story worth hearing. In foster care, you meet kids from every possible background. Some people just need someone to really listen." Elena felt a pang of guilt thinking about her own privileged upbringing. That must have been difficult moving between homes. It was, but it taught me to appreciate genuine kindness when I find it, like yours. David reached across the table and briefly touched her hand. "I know you probably think I'm just some struggling artist who can't afford his own dinner. But being with you feels like the most natural thing in the world." Elena's breath caught. She wanted to tell him everything about the money, the company, the way she had been hiding behind the cafe counter because she was afraid of being loved for the wrong reasons. But the words stuck in her throat. "Can I ask you something?" David continued. "What made you want to open the cafe? You clearly have education and intelligence that could take you anywhere." Elena chose her words carefully. "I wanted to create a space where people could just be themselves. No pretense, no judgment. Somewhere real." "Mission accomplished," David said with a smile that made Elena's heart skip. "Your cafe is the first place I've felt welcomed in this city." Their conversation flowed effortlessly through dinner. David told her about his current project designing a community garden for a low-income neighborhood, and Elena found herself genuinely impressed by his vision and dedication. He spoke passionately about how green spaces could transform communities, how thoughtful design could give people dignity and hope. "I've been saving up to take some architecture courses," David admitted over dessert. "It'll take me about 2 years to afford even part-time classes, but I figure if I keep at it, maybe by the time I'm 35, I'll be able to do the kind of work I dream about." Elena's chest tightened with the urge to help him, to write a check that would solve his problems instantly. But she knew that would change everything between them. She wasn't ready to risk what they were building. As they walked back to their cars, David suddenly stopped. "Elena, can I be honest about something?" She nodded, her heart racing. "I haven't felt this connected to another person in years. I know we've only known each other a few months, but there's something about you that feels like home." He paused, vulnerability clear in his voice. "I hope that doesn't scare you." Elena stepped closer to him, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "It doesn't scare me. It makes me feel alive." When David kissed her, gentle and tentative at first, Elena felt like she was finally herself for the first time. In years, not the heiress, not the cafe owner hiding from her real life, but simply a woman falling for an extraordinary man. The next few weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and deepening connection. David would arrive early at the cafe, helping Elena set up tables and chairs before the morning rush. She would save him the best pastries and experiment with new coffee blends. Just to see his face light up when he tasted them, they explored the city together on Elena's days off visiting art galleries. Walking through neighborhoods David was studying for his community garden project, sharing meals at hole-in-the-wall restaurants that served incredible food. Elena found herself seeing Portland through David's eyes, noticing the way architecture could inspire or deflate, how public spaces either welcomed or excluded people. One evening, as they sat on a park bench watching the sunset, David took her hand. "I have something to tell you," he said seriously. "I've been offered a job, a real job with benefits and everything. It's with an architecture firm downtown. The pay isn't great, but it's a start." Elena's heart soared for him. "David, that's wonderful. How did it happen?" "I've been volunteering to help with permit drawings for the community garden project. The lead architect noticed my work and offered me a position as a junior draftsman." David's smile was radiant. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm moving toward something instead of just surviving." Elena squeezed his hand, overwhelmed with pride and love. "You deserve this. You deserve everything good that's coming your way." "You out to celebrate," David said. "Somewhere nice?" "I know I can't afford the fanciest place in town, but I want to do this right." Before Elena could respond, a familiar voice called out behind them. Elena Martinez." Elena's blood ran cold. She turned to see James Patterson, her family's lawyer, approaching with his usual briefcase and perfectly pressed suit. Had been handling her family's legal affairs for decades, and he knew her face as well as her financial portfolio. "Mr. Patterson," Elena said carefully, hoping David wouldn't notice the formal tone that had crept into her voice. "I've been trying to reach you about the quarterly board meeting," James continued, oblivious to Elena's discomfort. "The Martinez Technologies shareholders are expecting your input on the new expansion plans. The proposal requires your signature. As the primary beneficiary." Elena felt the world tilt around her. David was staring at her with confusion and growing realization. Martinez Technologies, everyone in the city knew that name, knew it was worth billions. "I'm sorry," David said. Slowly, "but I think there's been some mistake. Elena owns a coffee shop." James looked between them, finally understanding his error. "Oh, I see. Well, yes, Ms. Martinez has many business interests." Elena stood abruptly. "James, we'll need to discuss this later. I'm with someone right now." The damage was done. David's face had gone pale, and Elena could see the pieces clicking into place in his mind. The expensive apartment she had tried to hide, the way she never seemed worried about money, the casual way she had offered to pay. "For everything, Elena," David said quietly. "Who are you?" Love's true test. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Elena watched David's face cycle through confusion, realization, and something that looked dangerously close to betrayal. James Patterson, finally grasping the magnitude of his mistake, mumbled an apology and retreated, leaving them alone on the park bench as the sun disappeared behind the Portland skyline. "Martinez Technologies," David said slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're that Martinez, at a tech heiress. The woman who's worth more than most countries' GDP?" Elena's hands trembled as she reached for him, but David pulled away. "I can explain." "Explain what exactly?" David stood up, pacing a few steps away before turning back to face her. "That you've been lying to me for months? That every time I worried about money, every time I felt embarrassed about not being able to afford things. You were sitting on a fortune that could solve every problem I've ever had?" "It wasn't like that," Elena said desperately, tears threatening to spill. "I didn't tell you because I wanted you to know me. The real me. Not the money or the company or any of that." David laughed bitterly. "The real you, Elena? I don't even know who that is anymore. I've been pouring my heart out to you about my struggles, my dreams, my pathetic attempts to save money for architecture school. And you've been what, playing? Pretend? Slumming it with the poor artist?" "No." Elena shot to her feet, her voice breaking. "David, please. Everything between us has been real. My feelings, our connection, none of that was pretend. But the rest of it was," David said quietly, "the coffee shop, the simple life, the way you let me believe we were equals. You watched me worry about the cost of a muffin while you could have bought the entire building without thinking twice." Elena felt her world crumbling. "The café isn't pretend. It's the only place I've ever felt like myself. And with you, God, David, you make me feel more real than I've ever felt in my life." How am I supposed to believe that? David's voice was raw with hurt. How do I know anything about us was genuine? Maybe you were just bored, looking for some authentic experience to add to your collection. The accusation hit Elena like a physical blow. You know that's not true? You know me better than that? Do I? David shook his head. I thought I knew. A struggling cafe owner who understood what it meant to work hard for something. Instead, I've been falling in love with someone who's been living a lie. Elena's heart shattered at his words. David, I love you too. That's why I couldn't tell you. Every time someone finds out about the money, it changes everything. People start seeing dollar signs instead of me. I couldn't bear the thought of losing you that way. So instead, you chose to lose me this way, David said softly. By making me feel like a fool? Before Lena could respond, David was walking away, leaving her standing alone in the gathering darkness. She wanted to chase after him, to make him understand, but the look in his eyes had been so final that she knew no words would reach him tonight. Elena drove home in a daze, her carefully constructed world collapsing around her. She had built her life around avoiding exactly this scenario, and now it had happened anyway. The one person who had seen past her defenses, who had loved her for who she was beneath all the wealth and expectations, was gone. Her penthouse apartment felt like a tomb. The expensive furniture, the original artwork, the floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city, it all felt hollow and meaningless. Lena found herself looking at the small sketch David had given her, propped on her nightstand. In it, she looked peaceful and purposeful, the way she had felt when she was with him. The next morning, Lena opened the cafe on autopilot, going through the motions of serving customers, while her heart felt like it was bleeding. Every time the bell chimed, she looked up hoping to see David's familiar face, but he never came. Days passed in a blur of coffee and forced smiles. Elena found herself making his usual order out of habit, then staring at the untouched cup until it grew cold. She had lost her appetite, her sleep, her ability to find joy in the simple routines that had once grounded her. A week after the confrontation, Elena's Aunt Victoria arrived unannounced at the cafe. Victoria Martinez was everything Elena had tried to escape: cold, calculating, and utterly convinced that money solved every problem. She looked around the modest space with barely concealed disdain. "Darling, you look terrible," Victoria announced, settling into a chair with obvious reluctance. "James told me about your little drama with that artist boy. Honestly, Elena, I don't understand why you're torturing yourself like this." "It's not torture, Aunt Victoria. It's my life. This isn't your life." Victoria gestured dismissively around. "The cafe, this is some ridiculous fantasy you've been indulging. You're a Martinez. You have responsibilities, a company to run, a legacy to uphold." Elena felt a familiar surge of frustration. "I never asked for any of that. None of us ask. For our circumstances, darling, we simply make the best of them. This artist, what's his name? David? He's clearly after your money. Men like him always are." "David doesn't know about the money," Elena said quietly. "He found out by accident, and now he won't even speak to me." Victoria's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. "He's angry that you're rich." How delightfully original. She leaned forward conspiratorially. "Elena, listen to me. In 3 days, I'm hosting the annual charity gala for the Martinez Foundation. Half the city will be there, including some very eligible bachelors who understand our world. Come with me, wear something appropriate, and remind yourself what real society looks like." Elena started to refuse, but Victoria continued. "Or you can stay here, serving coffee and pining for a man who clearly can't handle your success. Choice is yours, but I think we both know which option serves you better." That night, Elena lay awake, staring at the ceiling, Victoria's words echoing in her mind. Maybe her aunt was right. Maybe she had been fooling herself, thinking she could build a normal life with someone from a different world. Maybe the gulf between her and David was simply too wide to bridge. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Elena looked up from the espresso machine to find David standing in the doorway, looking haggard and uncertain. Her heart leaped, but she forced herself to remain calm. "I've been thinking," David said without preamble, "about us, about everything." Elena's hand stilled on the coffee cup she was holding. And I was angry. I felt betrayed and stupid and small. David stepped closer to the counter, but I realized something. In all the time I've known you, you've never once made me feel small. You've never looked down on me or made me feel like my problems didn't matter. Elena's eyes filled with tears. David, let me finish, he said gently. I've been thinking about the woman I fell in love with. The one who defends her customers, who remembers everyone's order, who lights up when she talks about creating spaces where people feel welcome. That woman is real, Elena. I don't care how much money she has. But you said I said a lot of things I didn't mean because I was hurt and scared. David reached across the counter and took her hand. I was scared that you'd been playing a game with me, that our connection wasn't real. But then I remembered how you looked when you told me about wanting to create something genuine. You weren't acting. You were being yourself. Elena felt hope blooming in her chest. I should have told you sooner. I was just so afraid of losing you. You almost lost me anyway, David said with a sad smile. Elena, I don't care about your money. I care about you, but I need you to be honest with me. No more secrets. No more pretending. If we're going to do this, we do it as equals, not because we have the same bank account, but because we choose to be partners. Elena nodded, tears streaming down her face. I want that more than anything. Then there's something I need to ask you, David said. Are you happy? Really happy? Because it seems like you've been hiding from your real life for so long that you might not know what you actually want. The question hit Elena like a revelation. Was she happy? She had been content in her small world, but content wasn't the same as fulfilled. She thought about the community garden project David had been working on, how his eyes had lit up when he talked about creating spaces that could change lives. I think Elena said slowly, I've been hiding from the responsibility of having resources that could make a real difference. I've been so focused on not being seen as just my money that I forgot money can be a tool for good. David squeezed her hand. What if we figured out how to use it together? What if instead of hiding from your resources, you use them to build the kind of world you want to live in? Elena's mind raced with possibilities. The community garden project, we could fund it properly, and other projects like it. We could create a foundation that supports design initiatives that bring communities together. We could change the way people think about public spaces, about what communities can be, David added, his excitement building. Elena, with your resources and my vision, we could actually make a difference. For the first time in days, Elena felt genuinely hopeful. There's something I need to tell you about, though. My aunt wants me to attend a charity gala tomorrow night. She thinks I should meet some appropriate men who understand my world. David's face fell slightly. And do you think she's right? I think, Elena said, standing up and walking around the counter to face him directly, that I'd rather go with the man I love and show him off to everyone who thinks they know what's best for me. David's smile was radiant. Are you asking me to be your date to a fancy society event? I'm asking you to be my partner in everything, Elena said, starting with showing my family and their friends that love doesn't have a price tag. The next evening, Elena stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the neckline of her elegant black dress. For the first time in years, she wasn't choosing her outfit to hide or to fit in. She was choosing it to feel like herself, confident, beautiful, and ready to face whatever came next. David arrived in a rented tuxedo, looking handsome and slightly nervous. I have to admit I'm a little intimidated by the idea of meeting your family. Good, Elena said with a mischievous smile. They should be intimidated by you. You're going to change their world. The Martinez Foundation Gala was held in the ballroom of Portland's most exclusive hotel. Elena entered with David's arm linked through hers, her chin held high. She could feel the curious stares and whispered conversations as they made their way through the crowd. Victoria appeared almost immediately, her smile frozen in place as she took in David's presence. Elena, darling, you look lovely. And this must be your friend. This is David Chen, Elena said firmly, my partner. Victoria's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. How nice, David. What is it that you do? I'm an architect, David replied with quiet confidence. I design community spaces that bring people together. How charitable of you, Victoria said dismissively. I'm sure that's very fulfilling, if not particularly lucrative. Elena felt David tense beside her, but before she could intervene, he spoke up. Actually, Mrs. Martinez, I think you'd be surprised how valuable good design can be. Elena and I have been discussing some projects that could revolutionize how communities interact with public spaces. Now, Victoria's tone suggested polite disinterest. We're planning to establish a foundation that funds architectural projects in underserved communities, Elena said, surprising herself with her certainty. David will be the lead architect, and I'll provide the resources and business expertise. Victoria's facade cracked slightly. Elena, don't you think you should discuss major financial decisions with the family before making announcements? The money is mine, Aunt Victoria, and I've decided to use it for something that actually matters. Before Victoria could respond, the foundation's director approached with a warm smile. Elena, we were just discussing your family's generous contributions over the years. I'd love to hear about your future plans. Elena felt David's hand squeeze hers encouragingly. Actually, I'd like to introduce you to my partner, David Chen. We're launching a new initiative focused on community-centered design. As David began explaining their vision, Elena watched the director's face light up with genuine enthusiasm. Other guests began to gather. Drawn by the passionate way David spoke about creating spaces that could transform lives, Elena found herself stepping back, slightly, not to hide, but to watch David shine. This was who he was meant to be, a leader, a visionary, someone who could inspire others to see the world differently, and she could help him do it. Later that evening, as they slow danced to the orchestra's gentle melody, David whispered in her ear, I love you, Elena Martinez. All of you. The woman who makes perfect coffee, the heiress who's afraid of her own power, and the partner who's going to help me change the world. Elena smiled, feeling truly at peace for the first time. In her life, I love you too, David Chen, and I can't wait to see what we build together. As the music swirled around them, Elena realized that she had finally found what she'd been searching for all along. It's not escape from her responsibilities, but purpose for them. Not someone who would love her despite her wealth, but someone who would help her use it to create something beautiful. The future stretched ahead of them, full of possibility and promise. Together, they would build more than just buildings. They would build a life based on love, purpose, and the belief that everyone deserves spaces where they could flourish. And in a small cafe in downtown Portland, the morning regulars would still find their favorite coffee and pastries, served by a woman who had learned that the most valuable things in life couldn't be bought, they could only be built. One genuine connection at a time.